YouTube. This is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1944 family horse racing classic, National Velvet.
All right, gentlemen, let's get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's no reason to rush things. I'm reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating of Rotten Tomatoes. I will give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1927 movie era, and now I'm at 1944 with National Velvet. So this movie just has a very star-studded cast, but they're all very young. So we have a young Mickey Rooney as My Taylor, a very young Elizabeth Taylor as Velvet Brown, a young Angela Lansbury as Edwina Brown, Donald Crisp as Mr. Brown, Anne Revere as Mrs. Brown. So Anne Revere won Best Actress in a Supporting Role for her portrayal of Mrs. Brown, and the film also won Best Film Editing. It was nominated for Best Director, Best Cinematography for a colored film, and Best Art Direction for a colored film. It has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 78% fresh rating from the audience. And I will say this is the first ever movie that I've seen with Mickey Rooney. So I guess I will start young and maybe he'll have something later on. So when we start with this movie, little Velvet Brown, she's in a very big family. She has a father and mother, I think like 4 or 5 sisters and a younger brother. She is just coming home from school, and as she's coming home from school, she runs into My Taylor, played by Mickey Rooney, and she kind of says, "Hey, you're like, I've never seen you before. Where'd you come from?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just wandering around, looking for a job, kind of just going my own way." And then as they're talking, they see in a field across from them, there is a horse who is just kind of going crazy and won't listen to what his trainer is trying to do. And the horse ends up running off, and Velvet Brown decides that she's going to run in front of the horse and you're like, "Stop." And of course, My Taylor thinks that this is a bad idea, so he tries to stop her, but the horse ends up stopping.
He's loose.
He made it. Did you see him take that fence?
Come back and get trampled on.
And the owner of the horse says, "Wow, you really got away with horses, young girl. This horse is crazy." And Velvet Brown says, "Well, what's your horse's name?" And he says, "Well, I call him Pirate, but he's a mean man. He's a mean guy." And then Velvet Brown says, "Oh, he's not mean. I'm going to call him Pie." So she goes home, and then My Taylor ends up following her because My Taylor is looking for Mrs. Brown. Now, Mrs. Brown is someone who wound up in My Taylor's father's address book, and his father has passed away, so he's trying to just find people who knew his father, I think, so he can just kind of get an idea of what his father did and who his father was. I don't believe his father was really in the picture during his upbringing, so he's just trying to like connect dots and figure out who these people are. He has a sit-down dinner with the Browns, and he basically says, "Oh, I was hoping you could give me some information on my father." And Mrs. Brown knows who his father is, but she doesn't want to talk about him quite yet.
You must have known him. Why should he have your name in his address book?
I thought you were going to answer that.
Well, to tell you the strict truth, ma'am, I can't. You see, I found the book among my father's belongings after he died.
Instead, Velvet Brown decides to ask her daughter, "Hey, I think we need some help this winter because they're on a farm and apparently they're going to sell more things during the winter than they normally do during the summer." And what she's trying to get at is she would like My Taylor to work on the farm so he can be around. The father at first doesn't think that he needs anyone, but then he talks to Mrs. Brown, and Mrs. Brown says, "Oh, I think we should hire him. We should give him so much money," which he thinks is too much money. And he says, "Are you doing this just because of who his father is?" And, she basically is, but she's not going to say that she is.
Now, you know there's small sense in hiring that boy, Mrs. Brown.
Never crossed my mind. But you could do worse.
7 and 6 a week to make a few deliveries and
10
sweep.
bob would be more fair.
So the next day, they are Velvet Brown and My Taylor are kind of where they were near the horse Pie, and the horse Pie is scared. Velvet Brown brings her dog, and the horse Pie is scared by the dog, and he runs as fast as he can across this like open grass prairie, and he ends up jumping over this big like wall, and my Taylor's like, oh my god, he didn't just do that, did he? And he gets like this string and he measures the wall, and he says that's like one of the biggest jumps that you could jump at the national tournament.
We'll call it 2 anyway. You know what that crazy horse did? He leaped Beecher's Brook.
And then it starts to get into his head that maybe this horse can actually race and can be a competitor during like a national tournament. But I mean, there's no way for them to get the horse because it's owned by someone else. We are then we then are in the house of the Browns, and we see that Velvet Brown, when she's in bed before she goes to bed, she has like this contraption where she's like practicing horse racing because all she really wants is a horse.
Oh, you're a sweet one, Pie.
What is this pie business? A new one?
And she wants to race horses and raise horses. Like horses are basically what's on her mind. She even says at one point that she loves this horse. Like this horse is all that she wants. This is a special horse. It holds a special place in her heart. And that she loves this horse as much as her sister loves boys.
Mr. Eads' new horse. I'm in love with him. It just skips a bit here. Like Dwina.
Tweena skips a beat?
For boys.
Her sister, played by Angela Lansbury, Edwina Brown, loves boys. She makes that comparison. Like, I don't, like, this is how much I love this horse. So eventually, the man who owns the horse realizes that he's just too wild. He can't control Pie, and like he's just destroying things, and he's costing him too much money. So he decides he's going to auction Pie off for 1 shilling. You can buy raffle tickets. And so he's selling these raffle tickets in town. Now, of course, Violet Brown wants to get a raffle ticket. And when she's sitting at dinner, she asks her dad, can we buy a raffle ticket so that I could try to win Pie? And her dad says, God, no, you can't buy a ticket. Horses are expensive. You have to pay for feed. You have to pay to like lodge them. We can't afford this. We don't have that kind of money. So then, my Taylor comes in and he starts passing around tickets. He says, I bought each of you a ticket for the raffle. And then the father kind of stares him down because he's kind of doing the opposite of what the father wanted him to do. But the girls are so excited that the father can't really say anything. So he lets them have the raffle tickets.
What's all this?
Raffle tickets, 1 for each of the girls and 1 for Donald.
Boy, are you challenging my authority in this family?
No, sir, I'm buying raffle tickets. You'll have to pick your own numbers, girls. They're nearly all open.
So they go to have the raffle. Violet Brown has been telling everyone in town that she's going to win this horse, that she wants this horse. This is the thing that she wants, and she's going to have it. And then, as luck would have it, her father is the one who is pulling the winning number out of the bowl. So as he goes to pull the winning number, the people in the crowd start heckling him, saying, oh, I bet you're going to pull Violet's number, aren't you? Because she's been telling everyone that that horse is hers. And he takes offense to this because he's an honest man, and he doesn't want the horse anyway. So he grabs the guy who's heckling him out of the audience and says, here, you pull from the bowl. So he pulls from the bowl, and it's not Violet Brown's number.
Mine.
Now you'll pick the ticket out yourself.
So she goes home and she's like stricken with grief, and she can't believe that she didn't win the horse because she thought that Pie was going to be hers. Well, her dad comes home and says, guess what? The number that was pulled, no one wanted that number. No one chose that number. So they had to pull from the bowl again, and your number came up, Violet. So you are now the owner of Pie. So Violet is incredibly excited. This is all she wanted in life. So she decides, after talking it over with my Taylor about what the horse is capable of and what the horse can do, he puts into her head that maybe Pie could run the national championship.
I could the Pie win if he had the money, the jockey and the trainer.
He could fly to the moon if he had wings.
But if he had the money and you were the trainer, would you know where to find a jockey?
But he never expects that it's going to go anywhere. He's just making talk with her. Well, she decides to send a letter to the national championship. And she starts a letter. And then she gives it to my tailor and says, "Hey, does this letter look good? Is this going to work?" And he says, "This is all folly. Your horse isn't going to win. You need money for things. You need money for entrance fee. You need a jockey. You need to be able to feed the horse properly. There's all kinds of things that go into this, and you're never going to be able to afford this. So there's no reason to even do this." So then Violet Brown goes to her mom and talks over the situation, and my tailor comes in and he says, "Hey, don't blame me for this. I told her she shouldn't do this. I told her there's no reason to think that this is going to work, that this is all just in her head. This is starry-eyed dreamer stuff." And then the mom says, "Well, do you not think that Pi could win?" And he says, "It doesn't matter if Pi could win. He probably could, but there's tons of money that goes into this. It's not something that everyone can do because it's so expensive." And the mom says, "Well, maybe folly is good every now and then. Maybe we should all have dreams and that we should try to make our dreams come true." So she goes up. She used to be a swimmer, and she takes Violet into her attic where she has all these swimming trophies. And she said, "My tailor's father was my trainer. He taught me to swim. And I had a lot of folly in my head back then too. Everyone told me as a girl I couldn't swim the English Channel. This was much different times back then. I mean, this movie was made in 1944, so just think about when she was a kid, how long ago that was." And she said, "I had all these dreams in my head too that everyone told me I couldn't do, but I ended up achieving them." The thing is that if you try to achieve this dream and you're not able to, then you have to be able to move on to the next thing. You gave it a try, you gave it your best shot, and then you have to try to move on. And even if you win, you have to try to move on from that. You can't get stuck in the past. You have to always make sure you're looking at the future and doing things that are realistic. But at least say you gave it a try.
We're alike. I, too, believe that everyone should have a chance at a breathtaking piece of folly once in his life. I was 20 when they said a woman couldn't swim the channel. You're 12.
So she has a bunch of money she won from swimming the English Channel from her swimming days, and she gives it to Violet so that Violet can enter this competition. Well, Violet gives the money to my tailor because he's going to go and enter them in this competition and look for a jockey. Well, Mr. Brown automatically thinks that he's just going to take the money and he's going to run and we're never going to see him again. And that almost happens. So he gets to this bar where he's trying to meet a guy who can give him information about a jockey. And these guys get him drunk and they try to convince him, you should just take the money. You don't need to enter this horse. You don't need a jockey. Just take the money, spend it, tell him whatever. And, we'll take part of it and we'll spend it too. And we're going to have a really good time. And my tailor gets really emotional as he's drunk. And this is a really, really good scene. There's a couple really good scenes where Mickey Rooney is just a very, very good actor. I always thought he was just like this singer, dancer, someone who wasn't a really actual good dramatic actor, but he does a really good job here. And as he's drunk, he says, "She trusts me. I can't just take her money and run. There's not a lot of people who put their trust in me, and she trusts me to do this, so I'm going to do this." So he takes the money back, and he ends up going and entering the horse.
Not old. Not sweet on me. Trust me.
But he still hasn't found a jockey, so he goes home and he tells the father and the mother, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, "I entered the horse, here's your change," which obviously the Mr. Brown has a little bit of humility here because he really thought he was trying to plan ahead what he would have to sell, how much beef he would have to sell to make up the money that he gave him because he really thought he was going to steal the money. So now they're in a situation where they are signed up for the race, and now they start training the horse. So there's a lot of scenes in this part of the movie now where they're doing different trainings. They're trying to have him jump things, trying to have him run faster. And the whole time the jockey on the horse is Violet Brown because she's the only one that can really control the horse. And the horse likes Violet. So they finally have trained the horse enough. It's time to go find a jockey. So they find a guy who they think is going to be a really great jockey. They sit him down, they talk to him, and they say, yeah, let's go meet the horse so you can meet him and kind of get an idea of who he is. He's like, I don't need to meet him. Like, oh, this is probably not going to go anywhere. I'll tell you what, I'll take your money, I'll ride the horse, I'll place however I place, and then I'll be gone the next day. Like, that's all we want, right? We just want to get the horse in the competition. Violet kind of takes offense to this because Pie is Pie is her best friend, and she feels like Pie is not going to want to race with this guy because this guy doesn't really believe in Pie. And she says, like, I don't want you racing my horse because you don't believe in my horse. And my Taylor says, you know, I think the same way. You're not the right jockey for the horse. So they end up getting their money back and they get the contract back that they gave them. But now they have no jockey anymore.
See the Pie. Look, finish your food and we'll go around and pay it.
Tonight? You're serious?
Why not? You can see the horse, say hello, get the feel of him.
Shake his hand, give him a visiting card, make a bow.
Mr. Tuskey's right, Ma. It would be foolish. Foolish to go out there tonight. And just as foolish for you to ride him tomorrow, Mr. Tuskey.
Now, my Taylor used to be a jockey, but there was some incident that happened in his life that he doesn't want to talk about, where he stopped being a jockey. So this part of the movie is where he really opens up and he talks about why he is no longer a jockey. And this is a really powerful moment for him and really great acting, too. I was blown away by this. But he basically says that he caused an accident at a race that killed another jockey, and he's never been able to race again.
And I saw a chance to win the race and I took it. It was me that did it. And there was a tangle of reins, jockeys. One of them got killed.
But he ends up at night while Violet is sleeping. He ends up getting on the horse. He gets a feel for Pie, and he says to himself, you know, I can probably do this. I'm going to try this again. I know this is going to be difficult on me, but I'm going to try to get back into being a jockey. So the next day he goes to tell Violet that he's going to be a jockey, and when he sees her, she's just in a jockey uniform. And she says, I know you're mad at me, and just let me say this first, but if you cut my hair and if I don't talk, I think that I can be a jockey. Pie likes me. Like, I'm the only one who can control Pie. And I think that this can work. And then my Taylor says, well, what would you say if I say I found another jockey? And she says, I don't care. I would still want to race him. This is something that I want to do. So it takes a little bit of convincing, but my Taylor says, okay, yeah, I think this will work. Just don't talk. And the only problem is once they figure out you're a girl, they're going to disqualify you. But if this is something you really want to do, let's do it.
That's how I feel.
So now it's the glory of winning you want for yourself, is that it? You want to ride your race, take your risks, and win. You want to win over them all in sight of the world. Velvet brown before the king and queen, is that it?
So he ends up making her the jockey. They go to the race. She ends up, and this is probably the most suspenseful, the best part of the entire movie, to be honest, is this race. So the race is going on. There's a guy with binoculars who my Taylor is sitting next to, and he's like a comic relief at this point in the movie where my Taylor's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's like just saying funny things with his binoculars, and it's actually pretty great.
What's happened?
Something wrong at the canal turn.
What's wrong at the turn? Who's fallen? Who's down?
Don't know, can't see a thing.
It takes you out of the suspense a little bit, but then you're brought back in. It's a nice like push and pull back and forth. So at the end of the movie, she ends up winning the race, but she falls off the horse before the horse can make it to like the gate where the winners go. And they take her to the hospital, and they find out that, or like the hospital on the place where the race is, they have like their own little place where they take people who are hurt, and they figure out she's a woman, she's a girl, and like news breaks that she's a girl, and the girl won like the biggest horse race of the time. This little girl who's not even an adult won the race.
I'm a doctor, sir, and believe me, that's a girl.
A girl, ladies and gentlemen, a bit of a girl clutching the neck of a bandy-legged outsider, streaked across the line to win the greatest race in turfdom. A girl wins the Grand National.
But then she's disqualified shortly after because the rules state that you have to stay on the horse after the race until you get to like the gate where the winners go, and if you don't, you're disqualified. So she ends up getting disqualified, but she is immediately a superstar, and so is Pi, because she is like the first woman to ever race in this race and the first woman to ever win the race. So at the end of the movie, Mr. Brown is kind of calculating all the great things that she's going to do, all the public appearances she's going to make, all the public appearances the horse is going to make, how much money he's going to make, and he's really happy, and he's like making money. And then the mom says, well, maybe like this isn't what Violet wants. Maybe she's not going to want to go on all these tours and make all this money. And she said, let's just ask her. Let's not try to sway her at all. Let's just ask her. And then Violet says, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to. I don't want to do that to Pi. Pi's going to be nervous if all these people are around him and all these people are like trying to take his picture and making a big deal out of it. And that's just not something I can do because I love him and I don't need all this attention and all this celebrity. That's not what I was going for. And then Mr. Brown realizes that he's beat and he says, okay, I understand. And he like rips up he throws all the paperwork he was doing in the fire and realizes that it's not going to be the pot of gold that he thought it was.
The pie?
Oh, they'd take the pie along. They want him too.
Might be fun for us to go and see me doing things in the pictures. Donald would love it. But the pie, he wouldn't understand. Oh no, he's better here, safe in the fields.
My Taylor then decides he's going to leave. He's decided that like he's kind of done what he came for, and now he's going to move on and try for something else. And then at the end of the movie, Mrs. Brown tells Violet, who is upset that he left, who's like very emotional, that he just decided he had to move on to the next thing, like I told you before. And that's basically the movie. So what do I think about this movie? I think this is a really good family movie, especially if you're an animal lover and you love horses. It has pretty much everything. The dad in this movie is a really great comic relief because every time he tries to do something or tries to be like a stern father, he's constantly humbled by he's constantly proven that he's wrong, and it's always a really funny way that he's proven that he's wrong. The sisters, Angela Lansbury, does a really good job in this movie. She doesn't have that big of a role. Mostly her role is chasing boys, and kind of like the difference between her and Violet is the boy chaser and the girl who loves animals. I'm sure like if you have multiple daughters in a family, you can have two girls that are like that. So it has a little bit of everything for the family. It has a little son who is the youngest. He's a bit annoying, and I kind of didn't like anything that he was in, really. But, it serves all different demographics and different ages of a family. The mom is definitely the backbone. She's definitely the one in the family who has a level head, who makes level decisions, who also, her decisions are all based on caring and her heart, and she's a very good character in this movie. She does a really good job. Mickey Rooney's acting is fantastic. Elizabeth Taylor is young, but she also does a really good job in this movie. She's like probably 12 or 13 in this movie, and I think this is one of her first big movies, and she does a really great job. The end of the movie where the horse racing part is fantastic. It's suspenseful. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I would say a lot of the stuff before that, especially in the beginning of the movie, is a bit slow. Like I said, with the little boy, I didn't really like anything that was going on there. The movie does take a while to get to where it wants to go, but it does have comedy in moments in between, so you're not just stuck with like a slow burning movie the whole time. But I would say it's a nice family movie. I would definitely watch this with my kids if they like animals and they like horses. I'm assuming they will because my wife's a veterinarian. I'm assuming that we will watch movies like this because it's just good for the family. And all around, I would say it's a nice, wholesome, funny, fun movie with a great ending. The ending really shows at the end that if you put your mind to something, if you truly love what you're doing, that you can be successful. And I think that it has a really good message at the end. But besides that, besides Mickey Rooney's a couple of his big acting performances, I wouldn't say that like these are Oscar-winning performances, or even though, well, I can't say that because it won Best Supporting Actress, but I would say everyone else around them, it's not like, I would say, like a movie that you would think would be nominated for a lot of Oscars. It's just like a family-friendly movie, and I give it an 8 out of 10, which I think is a pretty reasonable score. 75% from the audience. I think that's a little bit better than that, but I would say that it's not of the level of some of the other movies that we've seen on this 100% Fresh list. So I would give it an 8 out of 10. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed the review, and please join me next time for, I believe it is Meet Me in St. Louis is the next movie on my list. Thank you. Have a good day.